A very good morning. It's just past 8 this Wednesday morning. We're back again with another edition of Breakfast News. Well, over the next 60 minutes, this is your one-stop show where we cut all the fiction, cut all the noise, get you facts as it happens on your very own show. For all the news that matters not only to India but also to the rest of the world. Over the next 60 minutes, as I mentioned, taking a deep look at all that's making news in the world of politics, business, sports, entertainment. Special focus on COVID-19 and the search for the vaccine. Lots to look forward to in the next 60 minutes. I am Anil Thomas. With me this morning is my co-anchor, Nancy Colley.
Good morning, Anil. How are you doing this morning?
Doing perfectly fine.
All right, with that, yes, absolutely. We'll begin the breakfast news, get you all the news from across the nation, world, sports and business update. But first, a look at the headlines we're tracking at the top of it.
Despite continued efforts and initiatives, farmers' organizations fail to understand the government's stand. Farmers decide not to take part in the 6th round of talks today.
Government accuses the opposition of playing politics over the new farm laws. Union Minister Smriti Irani says the frustrated opposition is deliberately trying to create law and order situation. Shivraj Singh Chauhan says then Agriculture Minister Sharad Pawar spoke about implementing the APMC Act.
In his message on the 36th Charter Day of SAARC countries, Prime Minister Narendra Modi says the full potential of SAARC can only be realized in a terror-free environment. PM reiterates India's commitment to work with other countries for post-COVID recovery.
The Drugs Controller General of India to hold meeting today to review the application for the emergency use of the COVID-19 vaccine. The applications of Pfizer, Biotech and Serum Institute to be considered for review.
Developments in vaccine front shows positive impact at the Wall Street. S&P 500 and Nasdaq shoots up to record levels.
In sports news, English giants Manchester United knocked out of the Champions League after suffering defeat from RB Leipzig. In another match, Juventus defeats Barcelona for 3-0.
Well, those are the headlines at the top of the hour. Now for the stories in detail, starting first up with the top story. What do we have, Nancy, this morning?
Well, absolutely. In fact, we're talking about how, the continued efforts and initiatives that the government has been trying to reach out to the farmers as far as the talks between them are concerned. Let's, in fact, get you the very latest updates on that. Despite continued efforts and initiatives, the farmers' organizations have failed to understand the government's stand. The Union Home Minister Amit Shah held talks with the farmers on Tuesday evening to end the deadlock over the farm laws. However, no consensus was formed in the meeting. Now, farmer leaders have decided not to take part in the 6th round of talks today. While as many as 13 farmer leaders met the Union Home Minister Amit Shah, the Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar and the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal yesterday.
Well, the centre has meanwhile reiterated that it is ready to dispel any apprehensions regarding the new Farm Acts. Government has emphasized that the reforms are meant to empower farmers and MSP and mandis will stay.
The government has maintained willingness to discuss all aspects of the new farm laws with the protesting farmers. Union Minister Prakash Javadekar reiterated that the government stands with farmers and assured that APMC and MSP, the key issues at the heart of the ongoing protests, will remain in place.
देश के बहुसंख्यक किसानों ने पहले ही इन कानूनों का स्वागत किया है और आज भी इन कानूनों का स्वागत ही कर रहे हैं। पंजाब में मुख्यतः किसानों को लगा कि इससे एपीएमसी समाप्त होगी और एमएसपी की रेजिम समाप्त हुई। मैं उनको आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि देखो, इस साल कानून लागू होने के बाद भी एपीएमसी चली, आपने धान बेचा, आपको एमएसपी मिली, तो एपीएमसी भी जीवित है, एमएसपी भी जीवित है और व्यवस्था चालू रहेगी।
During the earlier meetings, the government highlighted the key strengths of the new farm bills. Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan said the welfare of farmers is a priority for Prime Minister Modi and the reforms are meant to empower farmers across the country.
सरकार किसानों के साथ खड़ी है, खुले मन से सरकार बात कर रही है और पूरे देश में आप देख लीजिए कहां आंदोलन है? मध्य प्रदेश में किसान संतुष्ट है, देश भर में किसान संतुष्ट है, लेकिन एक भी किसान अगर असंतुष्ट है तो हमारा मत है कि उससे चर्चा होनी चाहिए। अगर कोई भ्रम है तो वो भ्रम दूर किया जाना चाहिए। सिंधु बॉर्डर पर भी जो हमारे किसान भाई बैठे वो हमारे अपने हैं, उनके लिए दिल के द्वार भी खुले, चर्चा के द्वार भी खुले।
Shivraj Singh Chauhan attacked the opposition for misleading farmers. He blamed the Congress and other parties for taking a U-turn on the agricultural reforms, supporting reforms earlier but opposing them when the Modi government implemented them.
प्रधानमंत्री थे मनमोहन सिंह जी, एक ने अनेकों बार जब भी अनौपचारिक चर्चा होती थी वो मॉडल एपीएमसी एक्ट लागू करने की बात करते थे और सोनिया जी चेयरपर्सन थी। अब जब वही एक्ट माननीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी जब वो लागू करते हैं तो कांग्रेस यू टर्न ले लेती है 2011 में समर्थन में और अब विरोध में। ममता जी घबराई हुई हैं, सियासी जमीन खिसक रही है, भाजपा का मुकाबला मैदान में कर नहीं सकती। ये सस्ती राजनीतिक रोटियां किसान आंदोलन की आड़ में सेंकने का असफल प्रयास है ममता बनर्जी जी का।
Government blames the opposition for fueling misinformation among the farmers for narrow political gains. Reacting on the Bharat Bandh, Union Minister Smriti Irani said the opposition tried to create confusion among farmers that the union government will end APMC.
क्या वो प्रेसिडेंट को दिखाएंगे अपना ही इंटरव्यू जिसमें वो कहते हैं एपीएमसी की व्यवस्था को भंग कर दो? भारत सरकार ने नरेंद्र मोदी के नेतृत्व में तो एपीएमसी का कोई भी कानून भंग करने का कहीं भी बाहर से जोर जोर से डंका नहीं बजाया। और एक किसान, धुले महाराष्ट्र का किसान, 3 लाख रुपए दे नहीं रहे थे लोग, इस बिल के आने के बाद वो एसडीएम स्तर पे जाकर अपनी कंप्लेंट दर्ज कराता है और अपने पूरे पैसे पाता है। उस धुले महाराष्ट्र में सरकार किसकी है? भाजपा की नहीं है। पवार साहब वहां पर सरकार चला रहे हैं। वहां के एक किसान ने स्वयं प्रमाण दिया है कि इस किसान सुधार बिल के माध्यम से उसकी कितनी मदद हुई है।
Smriti Irani said that opposition misled the farmers that union government would stop procurement of crops at MSP. Instead, procurement at MSP has been significantly increased. Some 33 lakh farmers have benefited from the recent MSP procurement after the bill was passed in Parliament.
विपक्षी दल ये चाहेंगे कि किसान देश का सामर्थ्यवान ना हो और इसीलिए विपक्ष की मंशा तो देश के सामने पहले ही उजागर हो चुकी थी। विपक्षी दलों ने हाहाकार मचाया सितंबर के महीने में कि किसान के समर्थन में ये जो बिल आ रहा है उसके चलते एमएसपी का ऑपरेशन बंद हो जाएगा। आज आपके दर्शकों को बताना चाहती हूँ कि सितंबर के महीने से 5 दिसंबर तक देश भर में 33 लाख किसानों से धान की एमएसपी ऑपरेशन के अंतर्गत खरीदारी की गई। 60,000 करोड़ से ज्यादा पैसा देश के उन 33 लाख किसानों के खाते में सीधा जमा कराया गया। 336 लाख मीट्रिक टन धान खरीदा गया। इसका मतलब देश का 33 लाख किसान मात्र धान की श्रेणी में आज प्रमाणित कर सकता है कि भारत सरकार ने बड़े ही सुचारू ढंग से एमएसपी का ऑपरेशन पूरा किया।
Earlier, some representatives of farmer producer organizations and farmer associations met with Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar. They handed over a memorandum to him. They also made some suggestions regarding the new farm laws. They expressed confidence that new agricultural laws were in the interest of farmers. Farmers have been freed from the clutches of middlemen. They said that some amendments can be made to the laws to make them even more effective, but they shouldn't be repealed. DD India.
And let's now in fact go across to our correspondent Meghna Dev, who's joining us with more inputs on that. Meghna, good morning. Assurances have been coming in from the government to the farmers and of course the organizations that the government has been meeting in the build up to today as well. And government has been reassuring that mandis will stay, MSP will stay. They're both going to be very much alive and existing. There needs to be perhaps more clarity and more understanding amongst the farmers that all the measures, initiatives are being taken for their welfare and for doubling their income.
Yes, absolutely, Nancy. The government in all rounds of its talks till now with the farmer union representatives has time and again reiterated, clarified all doubts that these farm laws are for the benefit and the welfare of the farmers for the agri sector. And what important here is that today is going to be an eventful day when we see ahead that the farmer union representatives are also expected to have a meeting at Sindhu border around 12 in the afternoon. And the government is also expected to, give some clarification in a written format or a verbal format to, give more clarification or to, come to some sort of conclusion with the farmer union representatives and with the farmers. Now, what important here is the government has time and again reiterated the fact that APMCs are very much going to be there. The mandis are very much going to be there. MSP has been increased in the past and will be increased in the future. Contract farming has nothing to do with the farmer's land but the yield. So all these things, the rumor mongering has been tried to encounter time and again.
Okay, Meghna, when you look at this particular impasse now heading into its 14th day today, having said that they are meeting in the afternoon at around 12 to look at their further course of action. Now, if the deadlock continues, what's the road ahead that you see for, especially for the farmers who are, there, staging a protest?
The government is basically of the clear thought that these the protests that are continuing can now only be resolved with dialogue. The government is keen on dialogue and has been continuing the dialogues. As we have seen, multiple rounds of talks have happened between the farmer union representatives and the government. So this clearly states the mindset of the government that they are in for dialogue, they are in for cordial and very frank talks. The government is clearly indicating and clearly stated in the previous talks also that the farmers, the union representatives must clearly flag off all the issues that they are having with the farm laws, and they are being clarified step by step to the representatives in the talk, and all the issues that were pertaining to different kind of issues related to the APMC, as I said, the Essential Commodities Act, as I said. And the biggest thing is that the corporates or the middlemen who will actually not have that much of power over the farmers are actually having a bad wrong time here, when the government is trying to clarify, and all the rumor mongering is going bait.
Sure.
So this has to continue for maybe if there is a deadlock and it continues, the government is keen on dialogue and is ready to clarify to the farmers, because repealing these laws is not a solution. The government is open for amendments.
Absolutely.
And there are many farmer unions that are backing up these laws.
Sure. All right, Meghna Dev, thanks very much for joining us for the moment and sharing all these updates. We'll, of course, keep a track of all these developments very closely as they happen through the day today and in the days to come. Thanks very much. And let's now move on to some other news.
Well, moving on to the next story, in the ongoing Kharif marketing season, the government continues to procure Kharif crops at its MSP from farmers as per its existing MSP schemes. The paddy procurement for Kharif 2020-21 has progressed smoothly in the procuring states and union territories including Punjab and Haryana. Over 350.29 LMTs of paddy procured against the last year's corresponding purchase of 292.37 LMT, showing an increase of 19.81% over year on year. Out of the total purchase of 350.29 LMT, Punjab alone has purchased 202.77 LMT till the closure of procurement season in the state on the 30th of November, which is 57.88% of the total procurement in the country.
Now let's take a look at some myths being circulated about the new farm laws and the impact of these laws in the agriculture sector and how these are different from the actual facts. Well, there you have the myth and the reality. In fact, farmers will not get the MSP. Well, that's a myth really doing the rounds, but the reality is that the MSP system stays. And in fact, the Modi government has also, in fact, increased the MSP.
Well, those myths there on the left and the reality there very clearly on the right,
Freedom to sell farm produce across India. Well, that's clearly now the, the farmers will have the freedom to sell anywhere across the country, and in fact that is what these new farm laws are in fact about, where no MSP, the MSP will stay, the mandis will stay, and these initiatives being taken for the benefit and the welfare of the farmers. Clearly myth being circulated, misinformation being circulated, but we have presented you the reality. The real picture is in fact the Modi government increasing the MSPs multiple times and also procuring more from the farmers at the MSP than any past government. And now in fact the new law will not affect the MSPs adversely. MSP purchase on the farm produce is done through the state agencies and there is no change in this due to the new law. And in fact the MSP procurement from the farmers is top priority of the government and it will continue to be so.
Well, shifting focus now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that the full potential of the SAARC grouping can only be realized in an atmosphere free of terror and violence. In his message on the 36th SAARC Charter Day, Prime Minister Modi said, "Let us recommit ourselves to defeating the forces that support and nurture terrorism and work collectively towards a secure and prosperous South Asia." The Prime Minister also underscored India's commitment to work with other countries in the region for post-COVID-19 recovery.
Now in some other news, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of the new Parliament building at Sansad Marg in New Delhi tomorrow. The new building is an intrinsic part of the vision of the Atmanirbhar Bharat and will be a landmark opportunity to build People's Parliament for the first time after independence, one that will match the needs and the aspirations of New India in the 75th anniversary of independence in 2022. The new Parliament building will be modern, state-of-the-art and energy efficient with highly non-obtrusive security facilities to be built as a triangular-shaped building adjacent to the present Parliament. Lok Sabha will be 3 times the existing size and the Rajya Sabha will be substantially bigger. The interiors of the new building will showcase a rich blend of Indian culture and diversity of our regional art, craft, textiles and architecture. While the design plan also includes space for a magnificent central constitutional gallery that will be accessible to the public. The construction of the new Parliament building will utilize resource-efficient green technology, promote environment-friendly practices, generate employment opportunities and contribute towards economic revitalization. It will also have high-quality acoustics and audiovisual facilities, improved and comfortable seating arrangements, effective and inclusive emergency evacuation provisions as well. The building will comply with the highest structural safety standards, including adherence to Seismic Zone 5 requirements, and is designed for the ease of maintenance and operations.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah on his reappointment as the Prime Minister of the state of Kuwait. In a series of tweets, Prime Minister Modi said hearty congratulations and best wishes to the Highness Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah on his reappointment as the Prime Minister of the state of Kuwait after the successful National Assembly elections on December 5th. I am confident that our excellent bilateral relations will continue to expand and flourish under the visionary leadership of His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad Al-Zabar Al-Sabah, Emir of the state of Kuwait.
And Prime Minister Modi also in fact spoke on the telephone with Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of the state of Qatar. Prime Minister Modi conveyed his felicitations to the Emir for the forthcoming National Day of Qatar. While thanking the Prime Minister for the greetings, the Emir appreciated the enthusiasm with which the Indian community in Qatar participates in the National Day celebrations. He also conveyed his warm greetings to Prime Minister Modi for the recent Diwali festival. The two leaders discussed the robust cooperation between both the countries in the fields of investment flows and energy security, and also reviewed the recent positive developments in this regard. The leaders also decided to create a special task force to further facilitate the investments by Qatar Investment Authority into India, and also resolved to explore the Qatar investments in the entire energy value chain in India.
Well, as the race for COVID-19 vaccine heats up, the Ministry of External Affairs is organizing a meet in which foreign heads of missions will be visiting biotech companies in Hyderabad today. Ministry of External Affairs is organizing a visit for foreign heads of missions to leading biotech companies in Hyderabad, Bharat Biotech and Biological E. More than 60 heads of mission are expected to see firsthand the development works regarding COVID vaccine by Indian companies. This is the first such visit and it will be followed by visits to facilities in other cities. India has been contributing significantly to global efforts against COVID-19 pandemic. There is a lot of interest in India's vaccine development efforts. India is the world's largest vaccine manufacturer. Prime Minister Modi had said in the past that India's vaccine production and delivery capacity will be used to help all humanity in its fight against this crisis. Well, our correspondent Shubhra Shanti joining us this morning with more details from Hyderabad. Shubhra Shanti, good morning. Give us a sense of the 60 heads of missions there coming. What exactly is the plan of action there on ground zero? Are they just visiting those two sites? What more can we expect when these heads of missions visit these two pharmaceutical companies?
Yes, Anil, the visit of foreign heads of missions to Hyderabad gains lot of importance because it comes close on the heels of Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla's recent briefing with the foreign heads of missions in November, last November, where he briefed about India's ongoing efforts in fighting the COVID-19.
Okay.
So the visit gains a lot of importance, and the more than 60 foreign heads of missions will be arriving in Hyderabad in a couple of hours, and the delegation, the members will be divided into two groups, and the groups will be taken to the leading biotech companies, that is Bharat Biotech and Bharat Biotech and Biological E, which are the leading biotech companies in Hyderabad, and which are also engaged in COVID vaccine manufacturing. So these 60-member delegation will be divided into two groups, and one group will visit Bharat Biotech, and the second group will visit Biological E simultaneously, and after that the state government will give a presentation to the delegation and explain about how Hyderabad is emerging as a pharma hub at the international level, and explain how the Genome Valley, where these two manufacturing units are located, are catering to the needs of the vaccine requirements across the world. So these groups, after the presentation, again the first group which has visited the Bharat Biotech will go to Biological E, and the group which has seen the Biological E, visited the facilities at Biological E in the morning, will go to the Bharat Biotech, vice versa. And after that the delegation will leave for Delhi. This is the exact the schedule of the delegation to Hyderabad, and this gains a lot of importance, Anil, because the visit comes very close to the recent visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Hyderabad on November 28th, where he visited Bharat Biotech and congratulated the scientists, Bharat Biotech scientists, and expressed satisfaction at the ongoing work related to vaccine production, that is co-vaccine being manufactured by Bharat Biotech. Similarly, Bharat Biotech, it is you know that it has just 2 days back it has applied for emergency authorization use, and it is engaged in the third clinical trials across the country in more than 20 cities, and it is planning to roll out the vaccine at any time. Similarly, the leader, the Biological E, which is the first pharma company in the South India, it is also engaged in vaccine production, and it is engaged in the second clinical trials, and it's planning to roll out its vaccine by February next year. So the visit of these foreign envoys to these leading biotech companies will showcase how the country is actively engaged in vaccine production. And it is also enhancing its efforts in making it available to not only to the countrymen but also to the people across the world, wherever there is a requirement of the vaccine, and whichever country is asking for it.
Sure. Well, absolutely. The efforts to manufacture and then delivering the vaccine doses, they're clearly underway and on a war footing as far as battling COVID-19 pandemic is concerned. And today, of course, 60 envoys are visiting the two Hyderabad vaccine facilities. We'll keep you updated on the development as and when it happens. Thanks very much, Suprashanti, for joining us and sharing all those inputs. And the experts from the Central Drug Standard Control Organization will hold a meeting today to review the applications of several companies seeking emergency use authorization for their COVID-19 vaccine candidates. Now, at the meeting, the three companies, that's Serum, Pfizer and Biotech, will give their respective presentations. Each company will give a 1-hour presentation, and the meeting will witness detailed discussion on the clinical trial data, including side effects, quality and the efficacy of the vaccine. The expert committee will then submit its recommendations to the Drug Controller General of India for emergency use authorization for the COVID-19 vaccine.
Well, staying with the COVID story, the government on Tuesday said massive production of vaccine will start once scientists give the green signal. All the preparations have been made and an outline has been drawn to ramp up production of vaccine and to make it available to each and every person in the shortest possible time. Preparatory activities for the rollout of the vaccine is being carried out by the central government in collaboration with states and union territories. Serum Institute of India and Biotech have applied for emergency use approval besides Pfizer. Extensive preparation suggests some of the vaccine candidates may get licensed soon.
Quest for developing the COVID-19 vaccine has entered a decisive phase. 3 firms have so far applied for emergency use authorization of their respective vaccine candidates. The first one was MNC pharma company Pfizer, which sought approval on the 4th of December. Serum Institute of India and Hyderabad-based Biotech applied on the 6th and 7th of December respectively. The competent authority will consider the approval of these vaccines on Wednesday.
जब भी ये इम्यूनाइजेशन प्रारंभ होगा तो ये साइमल्टेनियस भी हो सकता है डिपेंडिंग ऑन द अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ वैक्सीन, और ये जो पूरा प्रोसेस है इसको अलग अलग स्तरों पर मॉनिटर और वेरीफाई किया जा रहा है. देश के स्तर पर नेगवैक है, नेशनल एक्सपर्ट ग्रुप.
The priority of the vaccination drive is also being finalized. Almost 1 crore health workers will be first to get the shot, followed by security personnel including paramilitary forces, police and home guards. They number 2 crores. Next in the plan is the mammoth vaccination drive of about 27 crore senior citizens. The planning is being meticulously done till the block level.
राज्य के स्तर पर 2 तरह की व्यवस्थाएं हैं. एक स्टेट स्टीयरिंग कमेटी है जिसकी अध्यक्षता स्टेट के चीफ सेक्रेटरी करते हैं, यानी कोऑर्डिनेशन का काम मुख्य सचिव की अध्यक्षता वाली कमेटी कर रही है, और लॉजिस्टिक्स मैनेजमेंट का काम और ह्यूमन रिसोर्स मैनेजमेंट का काम स्टेट टास्क फोर्स कर रही है. हमने एक ब्लॉक टास्क फोर्स का भी गठन किया है और राज्यों को ये अधिकार दिया है कि राज्य की स्थिति के अनुसार इस ब्लॉक टास्क फोर्स को या तो एसडीएम चेयर करें या तहसीलदार चेयर करें.
The nation has also completed an assessment of the logistics needed for the massive exercise in months to come. There are a total of 28,947 cold chain godowns in India, while the number of people who can administer the vaccine stands at 239,000. India has a vaccination exercise of 13 different types of infectious diseases, which will not be disturbed or disrupted. About 154,000 vaccinators will be deployed for COVID-19 vaccination duties. Apart from this, a dedicated website is also ready to give information about the entire exercise in real-time format, including registration and implementation of the vaccination drive.
कोविन बेनिफिशियरी मैनेजमेंट प्लेटफॉर्म जो है वो बेनिफिशियरी की ट्रैकिंग, वैक्सीनेशन सेशन की प्लानिंग और मैनेजमेंट को देखता है. इस मॉड्यूल में आप वैक्सीनेशन सेशन क्रिएट कर सकते हैं. एक दिन में एक ब्लॉक में या एक राज्य में कितने वैक्सीनेशन सेशन होंगे, किन जगहों पर होंगे, कितने बजे से कितने बजे होंगे, उसमें कितने लोग आएंगे, उसमें कौन वैक्सीनेटर होगा, ये सारी जो जानकारी है ये एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर मॉड्यूल से तैयार की जा सकती है.
India's war against COVID-19 pandemic has produced desired results so far. Being a people's movement, the situation in India is a lot better than many other nations including the US, UK, France and Brazil. Recovery rate is a healthy 94.95% and case fatality rate is 1.45%. After 140 days, the active case load is less than 4 lakhs. The nation is slowly but surely turning the tide. DD India.
Moving on now, the Assam Rifles along with the police and the Narcotics Control Bureau recovered a huge quantity of smuggled substances in Manipur. In an intelligence-based operation at 2 locations of the border town of Moreh, the smuggled items including narcotics and weapons worth 165 crore rupees were recovered. Now 6 smugglers were also apprehended during the operation. The recovered substances include the brown sugar, sandalwood, precious ornaments, jewels and gemstones, guns and ammunition.
Well, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation founder and tech pioneer Bill Gates applauded India for its policies on financial inclusion and innovation. Gates, while speaking at the Singapore FinTech Festival, praised India's digital platforms like the Unified Payments Interface, that is UPI, and the Aadhaar, and said these initiatives have drastically reduced the cost of money distribution among the poor. Bill Gates even stated that based on India's approach to policy implementation, his foundation was working with other countries to roll out open source technologies which will benefit various other countries to implement such programs like Aadhaar and UPI.
And with that, let's now move on to our next segment. Take a look at all that's been making it to the headlines from around the world in a segment across the globe. Now, update on COVID-19 from across the world. As of now, more than 6 crore 85 lakh COVID-19 cases have been reported worldwide, with over 15 lakh 62,000 deaths. Over 4 crore 74 lakh people have also recovered from the virus. The US continues to remain the worst hit country by the pandemic so far, with the highest number of infections. While the US has recorded over 1 crore 55 lakh cases of the virus, with a death toll surging past 2 lakh 93,000.
Well, United Kingdom has begun its mass coronavirus vaccination program with 800,000 people expected to be vaccinated in the coming weeks. Medical centers have been set up across the country to try and deliver the vaccine as quickly as possible. John Bever's report from the city of Bristol that's now administering vaccinations.
The widespread rollout of the coronavirus vaccine in the UK after it was the first country to approve the use of the Pfizer vaccine. To start with, it's being offered to those who are 80 plus, to frontline medical staff and to those who work in care homes. In coming weeks, it will be offered to a wider group of people, but the UK only has enough for 20 million people, so it obviously can't vaccinate the entire population. They're very much pinning their hopes on the Oxford vaccine that's being developed in conjunction with AstraZeneca as being a vaccine that can be offered to the population in general. The Health Secretary today said that he was delighted that the vaccination programme had begun, but warned people that they still needed to follow the guidelines to stop the spread of coronavirus before mass vaccination has taken place.
And in fact, let's move on now to news just coming in from back home. From Kashmir, 2 terrorists have been killed in an encounter in Pulwama, and the operation, we're given to understand, is still going on. Let's go across now to our correspondent Salman Qazi, who's joining us on the phone line with more updates on that. Salman, first of all, just share with us the breaking inputs that you're getting as far as 2 terrorists that have been eliminated.
Yeah, this information in the Tikkan Pulwama started early morning today, and the information that we have right now is that 2 militants have been killed in this operation by the security forces, and though it's not confirmed officially, one of them is believed to be a Pakistani militant.
Okay.
So it has been, this operation is still going on according to the official sources, that they still believe that there might be the presence of more militants in the area.
Okay. And when did this begin, Salman? And is the encounter, we're given to understand, still underway? Any more inputs as to how many terrorists could be holed up, in and around that area?
The operation started early morning today, and has been going on since. Though the operation is still going on, and there might be the presence of more militants in the areas, but usually the usual practice for militants is not to be in groups larger than 3 or 4. So at most, what we are looking at are 2 or 1 or more 2 militants, or even none. But the search operation is going on in the area, so we have the information that we have right now is that 2 militants have been killed in this operation. So.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us there. The Kashmir Zone Police has just tweeted that encounter is going on in Pulwama. Police and security forces on the job. Further details shall follow. That's what we'll try and touch base with our correspondent to get more updates on that particular story. Well, coming back to international stories that we were following, US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to ensure that American citizens have first priority to receive American vaccines. It is unclear how the order would be enforced, as vaccine makers have already inked in deals with other countries. But it suggests the US is concerned about potential shortages as it seeks to immunize tens of millions of people in the coming months. Meanwhile, Trump has threatened to veto a Pentagon budget bill as the House prepared to vote on the spending blueprint that has strong support from both parties.
Now in more news, Brazil has signed a letter of intent with Pfizer guaranteeing the delivery of more than 70 million COVID-19 vaccine doses from January next year, as announced by the Health Ministry on Tuesday. And shortly after that, President Jair Bolsonaro tweeted that Brazil will make any vaccine available free of charge to anyone who wants it, once its efficacy and effectiveness and the approval has been signed off by the health regulator Anvisa. Brazil reported over 51,000 additional confirmed COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours and over 800 deaths from COVID-19, marking the highest death toll since November. Brazil has the world's third highest case count and the second highest death toll.
Well, US President-elect Joe Biden named retired Army General Lloyd Austin to be the Secretary of Defense, who, if confirmed, will become the first African-American to lead the Pentagon. The 4-star general was the US commander in Iraq and then the head of the US Central Command, covering over all of the Middle East in 2010 and 2016 when Biden was vice president. But he was a surprise choice for Secretary of Defense, bypassing a highly qualified former senior Pentagon civilian official, Michelle Flournoy. The Biden campaign called Austin a trusted and crisis-tested leader who has overseen some of the most complex and impactful operations in the history of the armed services.
Now, Mount Everest, the world's tallest peak, is 8,848 meters tall. China and Nepal have jointly announced on Tuesday. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Nepalese counterpart Bidya Devi Bhandari announced the new height of the tallest mountain in the world through an exchange of letters. Kathmandu and Beijing had differed over its exact height, but after each sent an expedition of surveyors to the summit, they have agreed that the official height is 8,848.86 meters, a bit more than their previous calculations. The mountaineers also suggested that a 7.8 magnitude earthquake in 2015, which killed nearly 9,000 people in Nepal, may have altered the height of the Everest.
Well, what does that mean is that Mount Everest is now taller by 86 centimeters. So it's gonna be interesting because, you know, especially the reasons given for, you know, the Mount Everest gaining height is interesting. We'll follow up that story, but let's now shift focus and take a look at all that stories that we missed, you know, bringing across to you. We'll go across and take a look at all of them in Web News Review.
And for a look at the Web News Review, we have our colleague Rukma Datta joining us this morning. Rukma, good morning. Just take us through what news stories and developments you've picked up for our viewers this morning.
Right, a very good morning to you, Nancy. And as your bulletin has covered in detail, it's about COVID vaccines, it's about the farmer agitation, the latest developments on those fronts that are dominating the web. So I decided to go for something that's entirely different. The Hindustan Times has a detailed article about how Parliament will change with the inauguration of the new Parliament building, inauguration of the foundation laying stone of the new Parliament building by Prime Minister Modi tomorrow. It says here, Parliament, a look on how seating arrangements have evolved over the past 68 years. With the laying of the new foundation stone, the Parliament building will have increased its seating capacity by 55%. And this is not the first time that this has happened. Even before independence, the number of seats was 145. Later on, it went on increasing by, over the years, and now it will have an entirely new look with the state-of-the-art building, a green building, and there's much to look forward to on that front. Other news that is trending, the Indian Express on the world stage, it talks about how Turkey will be cracking down heavily on hundreds of its military for as having ties to a coup. Again, the Indian Express, in fact, almost all websites are covering this. Hari Shukla, an Indian origin man in England, will be the first to receive the COVID vaccine. And he says that he feels that it is his duty and that he should do so. He received the first of the 2 doses. Meanwhile, in Southeast Asia, Hong Kong has gone into a more restrictive lockdown than ever before because of a surge in cases. The other story the BBC has highlighted is a story that you've already covered in your bulletin. It's about the first African American to become a defense secretary as Biden selects Mr. Lloyd, who was in charge of the Iraqi operations in the Middle East, and also France seeking long jail terms for those involved in the 2015 Paris massacre. 14 of them are on trial, and the others, 3 others, are still being looked for. Meanwhile, the BBC has a very interesting article. So far, it was thought that animals cannot get coronavirus, but this report says that 4 lions have tested positive for COVID-19 at Barcelona Zoo. And the report, while it clearly states that there are 3 females and 1 male, they are recovering nicely. They have mild symptoms, and probably they got it from one of the staff who had who was asymptomatic, and they are being treated with anti-inflammatory drugs and being monitored closely. The article says that also adds how wildlife are enjoying the lockdown at Barcelona Zoo, and also that the virus probably could jump back and forth from animals. Moving on to other world news, about the report is out about the Christchurch massacre that took place, and it clearly states that the massacre was unpreventable, suggesting that there was nothing that could have been done to prevent it from a man-made point of view, but it does suggest that there were some loopholes in security that could have been avoided perhaps. Meanwhile, in Argentina, football legend Maradona, who passed away recently, could be immortalized in a banknote in his country, as a senator there has proposed a new Maradona banknote. Then moving on to other stories, finally about the environment. The Economic Times talks about how COVID-19 has thrashed the recycling dream, while oil and gas industry hope for more plastic. It's talking here about how because of coronavirus and the increasing demand day by day for face shields, for masks, for gloves, it has set back the war against plastic by many years. The demand has spiked across continents, across countries, from Wuhan to New York, it says here, and plastic recyclers are losing, oil companies, it appears, are winning. And finally, of course, alarm bells about the Western Ghats, environment conservation in the Western Ghats, and then also that 4 Indian companies have made it to the A-list of as far as fighting against climate change, working to protect the environment are concerned. That's all as far as the web review from me is concerned. It's back to you, Anil and Nancy.
Well, thank you, Rukma. Appreciate you joining us this morning with those updates there from all the latest on the World Wide Web and social media. Thank you once again. Well, moving on
Yes.
to our next segment, what do we have next?
Well, absolutely. Next, we are focusing on all the business news in our next segment, the Business Buzz. And the US stocks closed higher on Tuesday in part due to a boost from the healthcare sector on positive COVID-19 vaccine news, while uncertainty over fresh fiscal stimulus held the gains in check. Johnson & Johnson rose to help lift both the Dow and the S&P 500 after the company said it could obtain a late-stage trial results of a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine it is developing in January, earlier than expected. Pfizer also advanced as it cleared the next hurdle in the race to get its COVID-19 vaccine approved for emergency use after the US health regulator released documents raising no new safety or efficacy issues. Positive developments related to COVID-19 vaccine have in recent weeks helped investors look past the surge in infections and anticipate an economic rebound next year.
Well, automobile companies have been vying to bring the perfect electric vehicle to international markets. Other than the giants of the industry, several startups have time and again impressed with the breakthrough innovations. Most of these, however, are born out of US, Europe and China. So when a homegrown firm comes out with a state-of-the-art electric vehicle that promises the best in the field and is completely made in India, it is bound to grab attention. This is what Praveg is doing. A Bangalore-based electronic vehicle startup, Praveg Dynamics, has revealed its first electric vehicle, which looks futuristic and promises a range of 500 kilometers on a single charge. It can produce a top speed of 196 kilometers per hour and can sprint from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 5.4 seconds.
A clarion call by Prime Minister Narendra Modi for our Atmanirbhar Bharat has seen some of the best minds coming together and taking out new technologies for Make in India initiative. Make in India product, made in India. How much proud do you feel while making this car?
The technology so far developed is for safety of batteries and providing a certain amount of range. Almost 90% I would say by mass, the vehicle is made in India. Of course, there are certain smaller components which are also high value components. And that is the opportunity that Indian vendors should also look at. There are 200 crore cars, or rather 2 billion cars in the world to be replaced in the next 10-15 years. This provides a massive headroom for us to, in fact, supply to the world, make in India and sell to the world, and really capture that market.
Right. By what time do you think this car can be serially produced in the country?
So in fact, this is a one-of-a-kind prototype. It's an almost 1.5-year-old prototype for us. It's the first time we are getting it out in public, and with you, Tapas, it couldn't be a better platform. But so the new version, we've already built a few prototypes. We're building prototypes for that, and it will be in serial production next Diwali, November 21.
What about the life cycle of a car? Also, how long does it work? The most of the people talk about that charging an EV takes time. So how long does it take to charge this electrical vehicle?
So I'll address all the 3 points. One is the charge time. So for our vehicles, we can go up to 400 kilometers of charge in 30 minutes. That's 80% in 30 minutes. After that, we have to kind of slow down a little bit, but that's at par with the global metrics. Then second is the life cycle of the battery itself. So we are looking at almost 10 lakh kilometers, which is I would say one of the leading metrics in the world today of life cycle of the battery.
We also spoke about the speed. Generally, we have seen EV don't match up with the speed of a regular combustion engine. What about this car? What about Praveg?
Motors are used in almost all the largest and the fastest applications in the world, whether it's bullet trains, whether it's aircraft carriers, etc. So motors are in fact incredibly good. It's just a matter of how much power can you take out of the battery to power that motor. So this one can go up to 196 kilometers per hour as a top speed.
Appreciate the time. So that was Siddharth telling us that baby steps were taken, but it's time for India to become a global leader when it comes to EV technology. With camera person Anil, this is Apush Bhattacharya, DD India, Delhi.
Well, that car is worth a look. Well, moving on to our next segment, that's sports, where we take a look at all the latest developments from the wheel of sports. Well, Manchester United are out of the Champions League after losing to RB Leipzig 2-3 in their final Group H match of the UEFA Champions League. The Reds went into the game knowing a point would be enough to seal a place in the knockout phase, but were 2 goals down at the break and fell 3 behind in the second half. Late goals from Bruno Fernandes and Harry Maguire gave United hope, but their luck untimely ran out and they couldn't find a third. The loss means Manchester United will drop into the Europa League in the new year, having lost in the semi-finals of that competition last season. Next up for the Reds is Saturday's derby at Old Trafford.
Now, midfielder Joringo scored from the spot as Chelsea finished the successful Champions League Group E campaign with a 1-1 draw and a point against Krasnodar. Frank Lampard made 10 changes to the side that defeated Leeds at the weekend. The second-string Blues dominated the early possession, but the Russian side looked dangerous on the break and took the lead in the 24th minute through Remy Kebella. However, 4 minutes later, the English side were level when Joringo converted a penalty after Tammy Abraham had been fouled in the area by Brazilian midfielder Caio. The Blues finished Group E as the winners with 14 points from their 6 games.
Well, Cristiano Ronaldo scored 2 penalties to take his Champions League goal tally to 134 as Juventus beat a scared Barcelona 3-0 to seal the top spot in Group G. It is Barcelona's first defeat in a group game since 2016. It was Andre Pirlo's Juventus who came out on top against an out-of-form Barcelona to finish at the top of Group G. They started the day with a 3-point cushion over Juventus but finished second and will now be unseeded in next Monday's last 16 draw.
And with that, let's now move on to our next segment, the health story of the day. And while medicines are used to treat and cure ailments, but irrational use of drugs can be harmful. Self-medication or taking medications without doctor's advice may become the cause for antibiotic resistance. Our correspondent Kiran Bhardwaj spoke with Dr. G.C. Khilnani about the prevention of antibiotic resistance. Take a look.
Antibiotic resistance is one of the biggest threats to the global health. If not controlled by 2050, antibiotic resistance will become #1 cause of deaths. How to prevent and reduce the risk of antibiotic resistance? To talk about this, we have with us Dr. G.C. Khilnani. Dr. Khilnani, what is antibiotic resistance?
Antibiotic resistance is defined as a situation where when we give antibiotic for a particular infection, that infection doesn't get controlled. So that means that antibiotics which are used for killing the bacteria survive those antibiotics.
What are the causes and factors that leads to antibiotic resistance?
There are various reasons for that. One, bacteria could be primarily resistant. That means the person who has got infection with the bacteria, they were already bad bugs, as we call it. They were already resistant. So therefore, the antibiotics won't work. Other issue is acquired resistance. That is, when the person gets infection, they were simple bacteria, they were sensitive to that particular antibiotics, but they become resistant. So the question is, how do they become resistant? They become resistant because the drugs were not good. Other cause could be that antibiotics were not given in proper dosages. That means their concentration in the blood was insufficient. Third could be that antibiotics was not given for sufficient duration of time, so that all the bacteria were not killed and the surviving bacteria become stronger. So the analogy is that if you are fighting an enemy, either you kill the enemy or the enemy comes out stronger.
Dr. Khilani, how can antibiotic resistance be prevented and controlled?
To control antibiotic resistance, the primary thing is diagnosis. Another thing is giving appropriate and correct antibiotics in the adequate dosages and adequate duration, and the compliance on the part of patient to take it properly. He should take antibiotics as prescribed in correct dosages, not leave in between, should take for correct duration of time and get himself tested at the end of the treatment to know whether the infection has been eradicated.
Thank you, Dr. Khilani, for talking to us. So stop popping up pills on your own, and next time before taking an antibiotic or any other medication, don't forget to consult a doctor. Kiran Bhardwaj, DD News.
Well, stop taking pills is what the doctor advises, and one needs to be careful about that. Time now to shift focus and take a jog down memory lane. Take a look at all the events that took place on this very day in history, December 9th.
On this day in 1608, famous poet John Milton was born in London. John Milton is best known for Paradise Lost, widely regarded as the greatest epic poem in English. This day in the year 1825, Rao Tularam, one of the revolutionary heroes of the 1857 and Sepoy Mutiny, was born in Rewari, Haryana. On this day in 1913, Padma Vibhushan Humayun Vyarawalla, India's first female photojournalist, was born in Navsari, Gujarat. This day in the year 1946, the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly of India took place in Constitutional Hall of New Delhi. Dr. Sachidanand Sinha was the first president of the Constituent Assembly.
Well, December 9th is also celebrated as International Anti-Corruption Day, and this year's theme is United Against Corruption. One story that suddenly came to my mind, but that skipped the attention, especially in history.
Alright, with that, let's move on now. Take a look at the weather conditions for today.
Well, taking a look at that satellite image there, under the influence of the western disturbance, what you can see is there is a induced cyclonic circulations very likely to cross fairly widespread to widespread rain and snowfall over Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, and isolated to scattered rain and snowfall in Uttarakhand. Isolated to scattered rainfall very likely over Haryana and Chandigarh and also Punjab during the same period, the next 48 hours. Due to the high moisture feeding from the Arabian Sea to northwest India and lower and mid-tropospheric levels, isolated heavy rain and snow expected over Himachal Pradesh. Thunderstorm accompanied with lightning at isolated places over Punjab and also over Haryana and Chandigarh over the next 2 to 3 days. Let's now take a look at the temperatures across various Indian cities. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of news. We've got a campaign running for you, Mask Up India, where we're requesting you to wear your mask as you step out of your house because we are all facing COVID times. Vaccines are near, but we still need to face the enemy till the time a cure is not found for everyone. So do not forget to wear your mask as you step out of your house. Our show is about to end, so we're going to get our mask on as we step out, but you need to do as you step out for your daily activities like going to office or even traveling to various places.
Absolutely. Well, it's a simple task. Just wear your mask if you really want to fight the COVID-19 crisis. And with that, we are ending the show. But before we go, we are leaving you with the glimpses of the mask-wearing baubles in Siberia. Well, during the pandemic, even baubles hanging on the Christmas trees can be reminders of the need to protecting yourself amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Take a look at those visuals and we wish you a great day ahead. Take good care of yourself. Stay good and be safe.